On this episode of the InsurTech Geek podcast, we're talking about advancing workers' comp through AI partnerships and predictive intelligence with Stan Smith from Gradient AI. The InsurTech Geek podcast is all about technology that's transforming and disrupting the insurance world. We'll be interviewing guests and doing deep dives into specific tech we see changing the industry. We're taking you on a journey through insurance tech, so enjoy the ride and geek out. Terra, this week's episode sponsor, is revolutionizing the world of workers' compensation claims and policy management. Terra's cutting-edge platform empowers insurers with comprehensive benchmarking tools, robust management systems, and an integrated ancillary services marketplace. Discover how Terra is driving innovation and efficiency in workers' comp at terra.insure. That's terra.insure. And we are back with another great episode of the InsurTech Geek. I'm James Benham, your InsurTech Geek. With me, my co-host, the most interesting man in insurance, the illustrious Rob Galbraith. Rob, how's it going, buddy?
It's going, James. And I actually got some exciting news earlier this month. It's been, I would say, a 5-year journey, but got word that my book is actually translated into Mongolian and will be for sale in Mongolia next month.
So End of Insurance as we know it is going to be in Mongolian.
It'll be in Mongolia, both on a physical copy and an ebook. Yes. And, there was a couple individuals that reached out to me when the book got released in 2019, and they said they wanted to embark on this. And, it was something that, we thought for a long time was going to happen. And then, the pandemic hit and other priorities and stuff came up. Right. So it was something I thought was just a missed opportunity. And I actually had no idea that they had a team of people that have been working diligently, kind of low key over the past several years and finally got it across the finish line. So I'm thrilled.
Well, it's the language of the great conqueror, right?
That's right.
Genghis Khan, right? And interesting, random facts about Mongolia, Rob. More horses than people in Mongolia.
Wow. Okay. I could see that.
So there's 4 million. There's 4 million people, 70 million livestock.
Wow.
Including horses, goats, camels, and yaks. But horses are so dominant. And I actually have a friend who flew to Mongolia a couple of years ago and did a great horse race across Mongolia.
Oh, wow.
It's an epic journey. It's quite dangerous, actually. Not because people are going to attack you, but because you're just enduring the elements, and there's a lot of accidents that happen on horses. And so it's very interesting. 250 sunny days a year, one of the sunniest places on earth. And I don't know if you knew this, Mongolia, birthplace of dinosaurs. So it was the oldest and first dinosaur eggs ever discovered were found in the Gobi Desert. So there's all kinds of random stuff about Mongolia. Really interesting place. I've always wanted to go. I've been to China. I have not been to Mongolia, but when I do, I know that I can bring some copies of your Mongolian book and teach people about the wonders of the end of insurance as we know it.
That's right.
Yep. It's amazing. That's great. Congratulations. That's great. And with us, a guy who does not speak Mongolian. He speaks a form of English known as wicked awesome. He's wicked smart. He thinks things are wicked pissa. He pox his cod in the yard. He's from Massachusetts / New Hampshire. The great, the amazing Stan Smith. Stan, how's it going?
Good, James. Thanks for the introduction. By the way, I'm a military brat, so I've lived all over. So I've been here for a long time. And New England, Boston's my home, but wasn't born there.
Wasn't born there.
I don't have that accent. I missed that opportunity. So that's
you did. When you're from the United States military,
yeah,
you're from the military. You're not from any one place.
That's right.
One of my longtime teammates here at JBK, her dad ended up being the chief of staff of the Air Force, which is really cool. Really an amazing guy. He's now president of Texas A&M. And whenever I would hear people ask her where she was from, she would go, United States Air Force.
That's probably the right way to answer.
That's where she's from. I'm from the United States Air Force.
Right.
Because she did high school in Virginia. She grew up in Germany, and it was,
Yep.
they were Texans. They all ended up back in Texas, but that's funny. That's funny. Well, I still think of you as wicked smart. So even if you don't park the car in the yard, so you're still wicked smart. I'm excited to have this conversation for all of our listeners out there that are regulars, and we've got quite a few of you who listen quite a bit. Stan was on episode 3. When I first started this show, I only knew, well, let's just say I had a more limited scope of people that I knew in the space, but I was really honored to know 2 people, Skip Brechtel and Stan Smith, and Skip introduced me to Stan. And so my very first episode was just me talking about the show. My very second episode was with Skip Brechtel. And I can just, say very briefly, he passed away back in February and was a very dear friend of me and Stan. And he actually introduced me to Stan.
Yep.
And then strongly encouraged a friendship there, in the way that Skip did. He just kept harassing you about, you call him yet? You working with him yet? He would just keep asking you questions till finally you do it. Anyway, rest in peace, Skip. We love you. And then right after that was Stan. Now I had Skip on the show just a couple months before he passed away, and I'm about to have some videos that are released. Stan's already seen them. That I did an interview series with Skip, and so I'm excited about that. But because of that relationship, Stan and I have been working together for some time, and have been we build core systems here at JBK and Terra, and Stan builds core AI systems that predict outcomes and recommend treatments and provide really detailed AI-driven analysis, not just linear regression models, but really rather complex systems that analyze tens and now hundreds of millions of records, and then look for a correlation and causality. He's one of the guys, and what's been neat is, we've been working together, I think, for 7 years. Yep. And he's one of the guys that has been delivering real AI for a long time, not just, AI in name only, where it was like an expert system disguising as an AI system, or it wasn't just an interface to ChatGPT. like he was building and training his own models for a very long time with his team. And so I'll just give a really brief rundown on Stan, because it's been quite a few episodes. This has been 150 or so episodes since then, and so I think it'd warrant a brief reintroduction. He was educated at Dartmouth, as they say. He is from the United States military, grew up everywhere. Then, for 8 years was VP of sales of Matrix One, then went on to VP of field ops at Agile Software, then was CEO of Open Ratings Inc., then 6 years as CEO of Simtech. And then for 2012 to 2018, and this is where it really got interesting and important, he was a predictive analytics practice leader at Milliman. And while there, this idea spun up, and then it spun out into this company called Gradient AI. And so since 2018 to now, he's founder and CEO of Gradient AI, which is a really dedicated AI and analytics firm headquartered up there in Massachusetts. And so it's been really neat tracking this journey. So Stan, again, I thought I would kind of give people a little bit of your background so you didn't have to.
Thank you.
Let's just go back. We talked about this 150 episodes ago. I want to talk about it again. That journey that you took through technology and software and ratings and then into predictive analytics at really an analytics firm. Like, what was that about for you? Was this an intentional path through multiple disciplines that led you to this, or what was your thought there? I mean, sometimes in our careers we tend to just take the opportunities that are presented to us. Sometimes there's an intentional strategy. So walk me through the story arc.
So the the intentional path, I was in the software business a number of times. This is, I think, my 6th startup when it goes back to numbers. The intentional path was when I started this company, Open Ratings, back in about 25 years ago. And the idea there was that in the supply chain, that everybody had automated a lot of things around it, but there was a missing link, which was what's going on with the supplier that's behind your supply chain. So many of these companies like United Technologies would have 60 to 100,000 suppliers. They couldn't possibly know all of them, couldn't know the latest and greatest about all these companies, what's going on, what's going well, what's not going well, so forth and so on. So it was a missing link. We assessed that with the market. And the value we're trying to deliver was, can we help these companies better manage their business by better managing their supply chain? Because if the supply chain doesn't deliver, a lot of these companies can't deliver their end product. And what came out of all that stuff was they all had lots of data. It was messy, it was incomplete, it was error prone in some cases, but they all had snippets of information. If you could figure out a way to pull it all together, you could actually put a very concise set of information from company A about how their suppliers were performing, and then bringing companies B through Z and onward, and build a very comprehensive view of how these suppliers were performing for multiple customers without sharing any of that customer information. But what was their last transaction like with this supplier? Did they complete their transaction? Was it on time? Was it the quality there? So forth and so on. And the only way to do this was a lot of database and things, but we also discovered this thing called machine learning. When that problem opportunity was presented to me, the only way to pull this together was this term called machine learning, which was really the early stage of AI. It's one and the same, but it was more of a generic description, which is pattern recognition using math and large amounts of data. And that's how we went to market with that company. And we were able to do really interesting things. Ask data new questions. One of the new questions we asked, I think, was the most important moment of that company's trajectory, was after 9/11 occurred. A lot of companies in the aerospace industry stopped flying planes. That meant a lot less consumption of parts. That meant a lot of their suppliers started becoming insolvent and going bankrupt, and that was a big problem for these aerospace companies. They came to us and said, hey, can you take this performance data and other third-party data and predict when these small suppliers might go out of business before we would actually realize they might be at risk? And it turned out we could. So that's the power of AI, is you can actually take a data set and ask it a new question, throw new data at it as well, which is what we did. We threw commercial credit in addition to this performance data. And it turned out that combination of data had the signal that was extremely accurate, predicting way before these big companies would ever know it, that this supplier might be at risk of ceasing operations. And so we became sort of standard best practice in the aerospace industry and some other heavy manufacturing industries, because they were just really reliant on their suppliers. So that started my journey with AI, if you will. And when I looked at the insurance space, I saw another market that had lots of data, but not always the best data, not always perfect data, not always the same formatted data, but lots of potential information and insights if you could just bring it together. And that was my thesis going in, was if I could turn that into actionable insights and very precise predictions, there's a lot of value I could deliver to companies in the insurance space. And that was the genesis of creating AI and starting there.
Is it fair to say that in early days of pattern recognition that you were looking for correlation and causality? Is that what you mean by pattern recognition? Or are you just 100%. Looking for correlation?
Both.
Yeah, because you're looking for like what cause, what contributing factors are around when this good or bad thing happens, and then which ones cause it to happen, right?
Yep. So, good example in the supply chain in small suppliers, it was different by size of suppliers, but you could see a combination of if their credit score had a short but steep improvement, paying bills, doing things to kind of get their credit score up, but their actual performance either was flat or somewhat declined. You could see a company that might be stressed, trying to get a new loan, whatever was going on. We realized there was a combination here. We could see performance combinations that would indicate for a short period of time, maybe they're getting better. But if that same supplier had a dip in their credit score, in other words, they tried to get, improve their finances, get a loan, didn't get it, whatever, and then they had to turn around and start paying bills slowly. If they saw a dip in their financial performance, again, based on other factors as well, not just this alone, but that was within the next 90 days, we could pick up that a lot of these companies would file. And that was something that we didn't know that pattern existed. We didn't know that combination of things existed, but that was something that came out of the data. It became very predictive and something we could monitor across tens of thousands of suppliers at any one time.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we think we know what causes things just because of common sense, right?
Yeah.
Like we look at it and we go, well, that causes that.
Yes.
And I can tell you what, getting involved in utilizing machine learning models has taught me is that about half the time I'm right and half the time I'm flat wrong.
Can I give you that an example in work comp for that one, James?
Sure.
So my first client, actually, on our first engagement for work comp claims and trying to identify what they call creeping catastrophic claims. They look benign. Some people call them jumper claims that just didn't look that bad, but would be in the top 10% of highest cost claims later. That's the goal, was could we identify those claims early? And so, but one of the things they told us that they already knew, I'll use air quotes for that, is that if the claimant themselves was a frequent flyer claimant, and their definition of that was 5 or more previous claims by that individual, that claim would always be very expensive. So they thought there was a direct causation between 5 or more previous claims and high cost complex claim. And so when our models returned a series of claims that we thought were high risk and the vast majority were low risk, they went and looked at the low risk claims and said, you've got 40 claims in that low risk group that are all frequent flyer claimants. We think your model's incorrect. And so we did some data science work to see if the models had missed something or whatever. But it took us a week or so to go through that. And when we delivered the results, we showed them that in those cases, approximately 70% of the claims that had frequent flyer claimants, the model was pretty confident that those claims were not going to be high cost claims. And they were not believers of that. But I had one fact to use for them. And this, had been scoring claims for 30 days in total, day one. So we're only 30 days into scoring all their claims. And of those 40 claims that had frequent flyer claimants, half had already closed. Half. So I had objective proof that that half of those claims were not high cost claims. They closed in a few days for a few $100, and that was it. And they were floored. And I was excited because I thought we'd missed something. And it turned out the models were correct, and they're overfitting on that one variable. How many previous claims you had wasn't as accurate as they thought it was.
So previous claims wasn't the indicator for high cost claims in the future that they thought it was.
Yes, and on a standalone basis. Is it an input? Sure. Does it play a role in some cases? Yes. But on a standalone basis, is that enough to tell you it's going to be a high cost claim or not? Absolutely not. In fact, 70% of the claims, it turned out when we finally did some, because this was such a surprise to them, we did some work and it turned out of 70% of the claims that had a frequent flyer claimant actually closed within the first, I can't remember now exactly, but 30, 45 days. It wasn't actually anywhere near as important as they thought it was.
Whereas they thought it was a key driver to high claim cost.
Yep, exactly.
So high frequency is not necessarily a driver to high severity.
Nope.
That was the core assumption they made, that the model really proved out that it was wrong.
Correct.
It's interesting. Because you would just in your logical brain, you would think that it was.
And their logic was, when they looked at some of their worst claims, a lot of those claims had frequent flyer claimants. So that's where they thought it was, causation. They said, okay, we see it there. That must mean that's and again, I think the way the human brains, we can handle, some people say up to 7 variables. I don't know about that. My wife would tell you I can't handle
maybe 2,
but not even 1. But the point being is, they looked at, high cost claims and said, what do those claims look like? And they tried to find the pattern of those claims to use to identify them before they got there. And that's the way humans can do it. This AI can do it at a much, much higher scale than we
we can look at every data element everywhere all at once.
And never forgets, never gets tired. And continue to learn. We tend
to identify. It's like the example that I used in our talk at WCI, where, in Star Trek, the red shirt guy always dies. Herefore, where to red shirts cause death, but they don't. Yeah, same thing.
Or if they don't use their name, that guy's gone. Right?
Yeah, he's gone. He's gone.
That's right.
He's just crew member number 2.
That's right. That's right.
Rob, what you got?
Yeah, Stan, it's great to have you on. I cannot believe it's been so many episodes from the time you were on as one of the very first guests to now.
It's an honor to have been one of the early guests. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know. I encourage those, particularly those that are big fans of the show, to go back, kind of listen to that early episode. I think it'll be really instructive. So for those that don't necessarily want to do that homework, though, Stan, maybe you can just kind of give a broad overview. What was Gradient back then and what is Gradient today? How have you evolved? Particularly, I think we've had maybe a pandemic that's happening then. We've had
a few things. Yeah. So and again, it's not too much of a commercial, but as James said, this business started in Milliman. My thesis there was knowing I wanted to build a contributory data based business model, meaning that clients will give me their data because AI needs data to train on. The Milliman brand would help me, and it turned out to be. Luckily, it worked out, and people trusted me because I was part of Milliman, because they trusted giving their data to the Milliman actuaries. They trusted me with their data, but we were able to establish that relationship. I was the first person at Milliman to put my all data in the cloud. In fact, my clients insisted that their data never touch a Milliman server because they didn't want anybody at Milliman, somebody they didn't know at Milliman, an actuary at Milliman that might be working for a competitor, to ever see their data. So we were basically walled off, and we were in the cloud, so nobody at Milliman was authorized to view it. But it helped me build a very large data set, tens of millions of work comp claims and work comp policies in that database. And so when we spun this business out in 2018, that was a key asset that I brought with me. So we left none of that data behind. We left no copies of it behind, and that came with me. But so since we rolled out, though, I was bootstrapped, and James has a little bit of knowledge about what bootstraps means, and I know that he's bootstrapped a lot. Bootstrapping can be effective for a lot of things, but it also can make you, it's challenging in some respects. And we'd done okay, I'd say, as part of Milliman, but I wanted to grow faster. So as a independent company that started out in 2018, we've raised now 3 rounds of capital. We've raised just over, I think, $88 million. We've grown a lot. We've gone from a handful of clients to well over 200. And we've also entered the group health market. So we were on the P&C when we started, and we've added group health. And what's really exciting right now is we're finding ways to bring insights from group health into the P&C market in ways that nobody's done before, and just find new ways to add value to our clients, actually bringing in insights that we think can help our P&C clients do more, do it sooner, do it better, and improve their results. So I think I'd like to say we're just getting started, even though we've had some good results. I think we're just getting started.
Yeah. I mean, AI, though, in the broader sense, large language models have turned the entire world's attention to a very specific form of AI.
Yep.
LLMs. Now, the challenge is that the LLM providers they're stacking other AI models behind their large language model. So they're confusing people because they're using it as a user interface to access other types of artificial intelligence, right?
Yep. So
now it can perform mathematical functions that aren't really the function of a large language model. They're using it as a user interface for it to be able to perform image recognition, image generation, mathematical prediction, etc. Has all the attention on AI been good or challenging for y'all?
I think if I net it out, James, I would say it's good, because it's lowered the barrier to people saying, first of all, if I don't understand what this thing's doing, I won't touch it. So they always assumed AI was a black box. Now I think what ChatGPT and these LLMs have done is people now understand better that it's trying to predict a series of words. In some level, that's pretty simplistic. When it gets it right, it's pretty impressive. It can edit a note you want to send. It can do some things I find to be very useful and valuable. At the same time, it's not perfect. And now, of course, the news loves to report all the things it does wrong. And some of those things are actually, pretty, not very good. So you got to be careful with that. But I think overall, it's lowered the concern, as long as people understand, where's my data, what kind of models are you using, can I see the back test to understand how accurate this thing is, and then ultimately, is it useful in what it produces? And I think that's always been the case, but I think now it's a lot more. I think we're just having more pragmatic discussions with people who have ChatGPT on their phone and think about this stuff as more part of their daily lives. And I think, and James, I think you and I've talked about this, as they start seeing more uses of it around their livelihood, like taking large amounts of medical documents and summarizing those so they can quickly understand what's going on in a case. If this claim has been diaried for 30 days, what's happened in the last 30 days, they don't have to go read all the documents. It summarizes, says, okay, they've gone for 2 more PT sessions, or they've had these new drugs dispensed, or in fact they've completed a prescription and they're not asking for renewals. And there's lots of things that they can pick up on instantly and say, wow, that's better than that's faster for me, more concise for me. And I think they start to look for more of those value-added helps that can make their job simpler, hopefully more enjoyable, because they get to do the most important stuff, which is still make a decision on what I should do now that I have this information.
Yeah, human in the loop, allowing licensed adjusters and underwriters.
Yep.
to continue to make the final call, I think is really important, in particular in a highly regulated, state regulated industry like insurance. Yep. We've had to put a lot of stop checks in. We have been putting in document and text summarization quite rapidly over the last 3 months. And even there, we pinned it as a pending note and then let a licensed adjuster review it. Right. And then they decide if it goes in with modifications or not. We just don't insert summaries without into a note record. It's things like that are super important. And certainly I've implemented Gradient before, and we use it as a total incurred prediction tool. We use it as a recommendation tool. But at the end of the day, the licensed human, they make the final call, right?
Correct.
And, which is an important hallmark of how you and I both believe this type of technology should be used. So
correct.
It's important. I think we recently announced a partnership between Terra and Gradient. Certainly for us, building a core system was a daunting task, as you can imagine. Doing a ground up cloud native core policy and claim software. Yep. We did it with 95% less money what a lot of very, very well-funded startups have done. Because we're bootstrapped, we're very capital efficient. We've been really working hard to deploy a great core system. But having the data and the capital to also build a really intelligent recommendation engine for treatments and predicted reserves and total incurred predictions and contributing factor determination. That's another really big thing. That's really important that your system can do. That was very daunting for us, and so we decided to partner. We recently announced it. Why is being partnered with core systems, and I just explained why it's important to us. Why is that important to you?
Well, so we think a couple of things. One, I think the core system folks, you're working with a client, a direct client. That client is responsible for is reliant on your core claim system to help them get their job done. And again, highly regulated environment. I think I can't emphasize enough how many clients I've talked to that bought from a vendor that didn't really understand work comp, and the client did not understand how little the vendor understood work comp until they're 50% or more through the implementation and realized they didn't understand work comp. It's a little late. That's a little late to the party. So that's one thing. I think cloud native is another thing. I think you at the top of the show, you mentioned that we're truly AI native, really using AI. I think when you talk about being cloud native, there's a lot of folks in the industry that say they have a cloud instance of their product. What it is their on-prem software been ported to a version of some cloud instance, and it's not cloud native. It wasn't built to be multi-tenant or a lot of things you can do in the cloud that makes things more scalable and more cost effective. So to us, finding cloud native a partnership that's cloud native like we are, that's helpful. I also will say, and I've said this directly to you, James, I think the most important feature I think about what's going on with Terra claims and Terra as a company, and I have used the word nuts as a description of this, is that you won't charge your customer till your product is live. And as a company, some of our biggest challenges with some of our clients is we're waiting for them to get their core system turned on, because our deployment is reliant on that being turned on. And when they're 1 year behind or 2 years behind or more than that behind, it's challenging. So I think we are excited to work with somebody who's got the ability to get something turned on quickly and get the client live, so we can actually roll out, and both of us, of course, start helping that client. And I've got clients that are on their third core system that haven't gotten the first two live and may not get the third one live, but they keep trying because of this effort to get through that. So bottom line is, I want to serve clients as fast as much as possible. I think that's the Terra's view as well. And I think that's what attracted us, that value prop attracted us to this partnership.
Yeah. And then, that's also what's challenging in the scenario you just laid out with some of these, funds, groups and companies that have tried three systems, is they've paid millions of dollars to implement systems that never went live. And so it's very, very challenging, because eventually they're the respective boards and executives, grow weary and then go weary of all technology adoption. And so it creates a lot of challenges for we talk a lot about technology adoption on this show, a lot about adoption. And it is really hard to get adoption when other vendors burn people out, financially burn them out, and emotionally burn them out by saying they're ready when they're not, knowing that they're going to float their work on the implementation fees, and then literally are rolling the dice that they can finish core system functionality in time for the client to be live. Like it's a really, really big challenge. So I definitely understand what you're saying and certainly agree with it. That's also why it's, as a bootstrap company, it's my neck on the line and my business partner's neck on the line financially. And we're certainly willing to put our word behind it. So I think that's, you can innovate all day long in technology, but have a crappy business model. We'd like to have both. You know what I mean? A great business model and a great technology play. Rob, what you got?
Yes, Stan. So following up, and James, obviously, you're talking about the partnership, so feel free to weigh in as well. But I'm just curious, Stan, maybe you can discuss a little bit about what I hate to use the word typical integration looks like, but maybe discuss some of the ways that you have partnered with clients. Is it via API? Is it through a core system? And then maybe talk about the uniqueness about your integration with Terra and what makes it maybe different or special or unique from your perspective than some of the other deployments that you've done historically.
So Rob, great question. So in some of the cases with the legacy systems we are involved with, where they were built a long time ago. In fact, we have clients still to this day, once in a while on a conference call, will say, "Hey, do you know any COBOL programmers?" Because that's what their stuff is built on. And we've been telling them for years that we don't know anymore. They've all retired. But they're so desperate to find them. I think, I don't know, James, if you mentioned that you can actually now use some of these tools to actually program in COBOL. So now that problem may go away. But the bottom line is it's been sort of challenging. So in some cases, we've had to just put a hyperlink in the system. So if they want to use our information, they have to link out, which is not what we want to. It's not the way we really want to build this. We want to actually have a tight integration and as native as possible. And I think to flip to the other side of how we see this working with Terra is that to have information that's important to the adjuster at the time they need to know about it, present it to them in the page they're looking at. So they're actually looking at a claim, looking at information about the claim, what's going on in this claim, what's happened on this claim. And there in that exact same panel is information as you may want to consider this next best action on this claim. You may want to consider assigning, if it's an early claim, tell them a nurse, a telephonic case management interaction with a nurse could be valuable. Tell them that they should consider, other things with this claim, or that they should, some indication that this might be useful, but maybe not even recommended yet. But have it there so they're not going somewhere else. They don't have to look someplace else, because guess what? If they have to look someplace else, they're not going to do it. The data show that if they have to go hunting for information, they're not looking for new information that might make their job harder or just take more time because they don't have extra time. They just deal with what they got to deal with and they move on. So as close as we can, put it in the cockpit of where that adjuster is living and making decisions. That way they make that they have that information right at their fingertips, can look at it, agree with it, disagree with it, ignore it, whatever they want, but it's there. It gives them information. And I also refer to this industry right now, and it is a perfect storm. A lot of folks are retiring with all the remote work. There's a lot of turnover. So training and supporting these folks that you're bringing on is challenging. So this is also reinforces training, best practices, things like that for our clients that can help that. But I think that's all available through this partnership with Terra, because again, Terra's got a newer chassis and has a ability to deliver this kind of interaction, whereas a lot of the core systems don't.
Let's talk about next best action, because that's something that I don't think we talk about. There's a lot of talks at conferences about AI, but very few conversations around next best action, because historically software was designed to have an input screen, storage and processing on the back end, and an output screen. And most software that most people in insurance use is just data grids, right? It's just grids of software made to look as much like Excel as humanly possible. But I mean, right? That's just the God's honest truth.
Yep.
Well, the problem with that is that we're not actually telling the user the next thing they need to work on. Like, we need the human to be a human and use their brain. Software needs to do more than just feed lists to users. It really needs to tell you not just the next action, the next best action. On a claim, what's the next best action? Okay, it's time. In 90% of cases, you should be bringing a nurse case manager on right now. In 93% cases, you should already be bringing a physical therapist in, because there's a super high likelihood. Instead of just saying, here's your results, say, here's the results, and here's our recommended next best action for you. And then most importantly, Stan, like you said, why? So
Right.
talk to me about this, because this is a major pivot in the way software works.
Great, James. So in the beginning, we knew we wanted to figure this out. We just hadn't figured out. We started building models that had, high, medium, low risk. And so what we're telling somebody, an adjuster, this claim is going to be much more expensive than you think. Now we're telling you that at day 5, day 6, whatever. And our clients came back and said, okay, we've seen the back test. This model is correct. This claim is going to be much more expensive than we expect. But I don't have the tools at this stage. I don't have the information. I don't have the medical bills. I don't have all the other information I normally have. By the time I realize a claim might be medically complex and other things that tend to be 30, 60, 90 days old. And I had a lot more information for me to understand why. Comorbidity. Turns out they smoke and they whatever. They had a lot more information to deal with. And so my early clients used this term, you got to give me the now what answer. I said, what do you mean? Okay, you've told me this. It's going to be more expensive than I expect. Now what am I supposed to do about it? And we just didn't have the capabilities to bring that to the surface back then. Today, what we do is we'll identify that high cost claim. We'll tell them what we think they should do about it, like whether it's PT, nurse case management, IMEs, other things like that. And then the why. Why? Because in a claim like this, if you apply that service, that intervention, whatever you want to call that, here's the benefit that you'll see on this particular claim if you do it at this particular time. And we're able to see, because we have all this data on lots of claims, that there's so many opportunities missed by putting these services on either later than optimum or not at all. In fact, I think you and I have worked with somebody who saw an opportunity to drive more value for the clients. It's a TPA by using nurses more effectively, more consistently. And when they did their own tests of historical claims, they found they had a lot of complex claims that were medically complex and a nurse had never been involved at all. And they just felt like that if a nurse had been involved early, that would have made a difference. Well, it turns out the data supports that. If a nurse had been involved, many of those cases would have been lower cost and lower duration. So that's the essence here, is to be decision support, but in a really specific way that service at this time would have this kind of value. So the what is you should do and the why you should do it. And again, it still can be accepted, rejected, or ignored, but track those interactions and then use outcomes to assess, was the model correct? If so, maybe that client starts to reinforce the use of that recommendation. If the model is incorrect, retrain the model. There's a lot of different ways to use that. But I think it is bringing, an assistant to the side of the folks trying to make these decisions in a timely, consistent manner.
Yeah, that's fair. Rob, last question.
So I got to ask you to kind of, you've been at the forefront of a lot of this, Stan, for the last, multiple decades, right? I won't put a number on it, but so looking ahead, right? What's your vision for how AI is going to continue to transform insurance, and where do you hope Gradient makes the biggest impact in the years to come?
Great. Appreciate that 2-part question. So one is the money that's being spent. It's just, you can see how many billions and billions are being spent for infrastructure and NVIDIA chips and all this stuff. And these guys are all going to try and outspend each other. But what's always happened in these worlds where the market goes crazy and the money goes in, technology just moves faster. So I think what we're going to see is rapid evolution and some big leaps along the way of all this technology. I think the LM was a big leap in an interesting way, but that the billions that are being fought over from a revenue perspective, market share, market cap, that's going to just create more drive. So LLMs are going to become small language models, be easier and faster to train them. It won't cost as much. I think there'll be some leaps in capabilities there. Auto labeling of data. There's just all sorts of things that's going to create more and better use cases of AI for all of us. I think we all benefit from this large amount of deployment of capital. And ultimately, that helps us The more things that are mundane that we can just have done by an LLM or have done by a core system that are good, necessary, but sort of steps that are regular, let the core system do that. Let the LLMs do that. We want to be taking the information that most likely they don't have enough of in-house, or they have some, but they want more. They don't want to use just what they've got. Things like benchmarking, total incurred predictions. What does a claim like this typically cost? Things that bring information from outside the organization. They still can use it, but it really helps them drive better outcomes for themselves. So that's where we see our play. The smarter our clients get, I think the more they can use our technology, and I think that's a good thing. And again, partnering with Terra, thinks that's going to put an AI native claim system in front of the users. I think it's a great thing for the user, and it's a great thing for Terra, and it's a great thing for grading.
Awesome, great comments. Good discussion today. Obviously, unfortunately, we're out of time, but always a great chat around AI, around insurance, a data heavy industry that can benefit greatly from the study of correlation and causality. I think that almost describes the quest forever in insurance, from the coffee shop days of Lloyd's of London, the 1600s, back to the bottom contracts the Babylonians struck 3,500 years ago, that there were the first insurance contracts. Is everybody's always tried to price risk by looking at correlation and causality. Unfortunately, for a long time, we didn't have the tools to look at all the data, and now we do.
Right.
Parting thought, Stan, and I know I said I was done, but this is hard for me to ignore. The large LLM providers act like the LLMs are going to eat the world on software and AI. They've said, if you're building anything on top of our platform, beware.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you haven't. You built your own machine learning models that you've trained. It's a different subset of AI. You of course are using LLMs to interpret free text and to determine sentiment and summarization. You're doing a lot with those LLMs. Just in general, do you think the large LLM model, like the ChatGPT and Anthropics of the world, are going to eat software, or do you think that they might be, more complementary than replacement?
So James, I think when you see these technology waves, the way I've seen them in the past, and I'm seeing the exact same thing now, the first major wave are what I call horizontal. They're general use cases that can be used, generally speaking, across multiple industries. And then what starts to crop up is the verticalization. So, and especially in AI, you need verticalization of training data. So if you look at LLMs being used by law firms, that's not, again, I think ChatGPT probably does some of that right out of the box, but there are going to be companies that train on legal, whether it's defense side only or the other side. There are going to be companies that are building vertical solutions that leverage, things that are horizontal, as big as these guys are, as much as they spend. So I think what I've seen in the past, and the reason I focus on vertical software startups, is because verticalization allows you to specialize and build things that are uniquely positioned, not just because of the technology, because of your knowledge of the customer's needs, and better than the horizontal players can ever do it. So I think there's always going to be a place for both in this world. If we're doing something that a generalist can replicate and do as well as we can, then we shouldn't be doing it. That's the way we look at our own business. If LLM can do this out of the box, then that's not something we should build. That's the way we're actually using it to help pick our targets as well.
It's a good answer. It's good. It's a good summary. It's a brave new world, and we're always trying to. The lines are shifting quickly in software. So.
Never seen it like this before, but technology moves faster every year, so I think that's just normal.
It literally does. There's a lot to consider in all of that. Well, thank you for your discussion, Stan. It's always good to talk to you. Always good to see you. And Rob, as always, appreciate your guidance there, brother.
Yep, great conversation. So glad we had the chance to catch up, Stan, and congrats to both of you on the partnership.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
And thank you for tuning in today to Geek Out. Our interview is Stan Smith from Gradient AI. See you next time. The InsurTech Geek podcast is all about technology that's transforming and disrupting the insurance world. I've been your host, James Benham. That's jamesbenham.com, with co-host Rob Galbraith at endofinsurance.com. We're taking you on a journey through insurance tech, so enjoy the ride and geek out.